What's happening, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Jampack Report live on Mixer.com/Samuel Adams. I do hope this one finds you well, and for those that are brand new to the program, this is a daily gaming news podcast where I fill you in on the hottest gaming news from around the industry. And ladies and gentlemen, I have a new start time for you. Of course, we have been on a weird schedule over the course of the past few weeks because my work schedule has been all kinds of jacked up, but I have since decided that I believe 9 a.m. Eastern Time is going to be when we start the podcast live on Mixer.com/Samuel Adams. That way you know when to tune in live. That way you know when to get the hottest gaming news as it rolls off the presses, because I keep updating until the minute we go live. Epic is opening a new studio. We added that to the show. No one else is going to have that if they did their podcast at a more ungodly hour of pre-9 a.m. Eastern Time. But with that being said, that's when you can expect a live show. But if you don't want to watch live, you can always check out the YouTube version of the show up on YouTube.com/Samuel Adams Media shortly after the show is up on Mixer.com. And then you can find it on your podcast feeds as well. Regardless of where you listen, you can probably subscribe to the Jampack Report if you did so choose. And I would very much so love you to choose it. But what are we going to be talking about today? Our headline story: Nintendo is clamping down on YouTube, specifically game music channels. Now, the relationship between Nintendo and YouTubers has been a little bit tumultuous in the past, and this is just another iteration of the exact same problem. Then, Dying Light 2 gameplay reveal is set for the 26th of August. We're going to be talking about the proposed game console and other electronics tariffs that have since been delayed from the Trump administration. Epic Games announces a brand new studio in Germany. And of course, the company has also apologized following the release of a reskinned cosmetic item in the ever-popular Fortnite. It's the exact same dog with a different bandana and a bit of a different color of a coat. Subnautica dev has retracted the statement that G2A was not the source of $30,000 in stolen keys. Spelunky 2 is not releasing in 2019. Oh. Then we have Steam adding a play it on another platform as a new way to ignore games in the store. And finally, DualShock 4 is getting 4 brand new colors. And of course, if you are a fan of the PlayStation Gold wireless headset, they have a brand new iteration of that coming as well. And that's pretty much the rundown for today's show. And again, if you do want to continue watching, I appreciate you checking out the show, and I do hope you enjoy what I bring to the table. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's top gaming news. First off, Nintendo clamps down on YouTube game music channels. One channel received over 140 copyright claims against their videos. Nintendo appears to be purging YouTube of all unauthorized music uploads from its various classic soundtracks. YouTuber Gilva Sunner, whose channel features tunes from a wide range of video games, has amassed 30,000 times 10. 300,000 subscribers shared screenshots of his inbox via Twitter showing a series of copyright claim notices against his videos. All of the videos, 145 shown and likely more across his channel, featured music from Nintendo games, including Fire Emblem Awakening, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and various Mario and Zelda titles. In a tweet, Gilva Sunner suggests that Nintendo started manually with the most viewed content on the channel and are now going through the playlist one by one. He added, looking at the time of the claims, it seems these are coming from Japan HQ. Elsewhere, the people behind the channel Brawl BRSTMS3, which specialized in Smash Bros. Music, has voluntarily shut down. Kotaku reports it was hit by similar copyright claims from Nintendo earlier this year. Part of the reason for our voluntary shutdown is out of respect for the copyright owners of all music we've shared, the channel wrote via Twitter. Nintendo has been particularly active in clamping down on violations of its copyright via YouTube, to the point where it built the Nintendo Creators Program, an initiative that ensured all videos featuring Nintendo games, including Let's Plays, were approved and partly monetized by Nintendo. The platform holder shut down its program last year to enable content creators more freedom in using Nintendo games in their videos, but posted strict guidelines for their usage. Essentially, it cannot be raw Nintendo-owned material, but must have some creative input. Quote, mere copies of Nintendo promotional trailers, tournaments, music soundtracks, gameplay sequences, and art collections are outside the scope of the guidelines, read said guidelines. The policy has still been met with disappointment from both channel hosts and their viewers. Nintendo's soundtracks are currently unavailable via music platforms such as iTunes or Spotify, so accounts on YouTube such as these were the only way fans could listen to them outside of playing the games. And so I have mixed emotions on this one. Number one, this is a bit different than the scenario that we had over the past few years, because this is not necessarily YouTube and Nintendo squabbling over the content itself. This is literally Nintendo-owned content that has been re-uploaded on YouTube, potentially with a flashy graphic or some kind of movement, going on to make it more appealing to the eye. But still, it is wholly Nintendo-owned content. And so whenever it comes to specifically music channels, that's when you run into a problem. And I kind of understand that because, again, this is not something that has any kind of creative input necessarily. This is just simply a regurgitation of the content that they made at Nintendo and that Nintendo games have supplied. So it's a bit different than what we've had over the past few years, as I said. In the same vein, I feel like if you are going to be cracking down on the availability of these classic soundtracks, you should make them available on the more mainstream sites that are built for music, such as iTunes, Spotify, etc. Tidal, let's not go that far. But I feel like that's the situation as it stands today. They really should release these classic game soundtracks because some of the in-game music that I've listened to in my years of playing games has been better than full soundtracks that have been released for just listening. Like, the in-game music is mind-blowing from time to time. And Nintendo is notorious for having some pretty fantastic in-game music. But as it stands right now, if you were a fan of listening to the classic Nintendo tracks on YouTube, it looks like those are being taken down one by one from some poor lowly intern over there at Nintendo Japan, who is tasked with the idea of going through and taking down tons and tons of YouTube videos. It's very unfortunate because, again, I like that Nintendo is moving forward slightly because, again, we are in a modern age where the content creators, the streamers, etc., that's how you promote your content. There have been games that have become popular solely because of the fact that somebody is streaming them, somebody is good at streaming them, or they're just very stream-friendly games. And so to go against that grain is just giving up free advertisement. I mean, imagine if they did this with Super Smash Bros. And on top of that, even stuff like Super Mario Maker on Twitch, Mixer, YouTube, etc. That would be promotional suicide in a way, if I did have to say so myself. Again, different scenario, moving forward, etc., etc. It's a shifting situation, nonetheless. But we talked yesterday about Dead Island 2 and its comparisons to Dying Light 2, and now we have a Dying Light 2 gameplay reveal set for the 26th of August, and coincidentally on the same day, that's when the last nail in the coffin is going into Dead Island 2. Ooh, most likely to be footage from E3. Dying Light 2 continued to fly under many people's radars at E3 2019 despite a couple of trailers cropping up in Microsoft and Square Enix's press conferences. It's showing a lot of promise in pre-release footage, but things are about to get a whole lot better thanks to the announcement of a major gameplay blowout arriving less than 2 weeks' time. The game's official Twitter account has revealed that a special live stream that will play host to an extended gameplay reveal on the 26th of August. Numerous E3 attendees spoke highly of Dying Light 2's behind-closed-doors media showcases, so we assume this is the slice of the game that will be made public. Could we get release date info too? The chances are slim, but it's not scheduled to launch until spring of 2020, but we are still going to hold out some kind of hope. Proceedings kick off at 7 p.m. BST, 8 p.m. CEST, 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, and 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so make sure you check back with us here on Push Square, they say, for full coverage. Are you excited to see more Dying Light 2? I believe that I am. Of course, we've seen some gameplay, which is pretty much, the stuff that's played on the highest end PC that has been optimized and pre-rendered and made now prettified for the big reveals whenever people go, ooh, look at that game, and then it never actually looks like that on PS4. But nonetheless, we have seen some gameplay, and it looks very stellar. I'm excited to check out the full reveal here on the 26th of August. But when it comes to the release time frame, of course, we've talked about the fact that Dying Light 2 is coming out in spring of 2020 if the release date is hit, or at least the expected release date is hit. And on top of that, it has been confirmed to be a cross-generational game. You are going to be getting a version on the PS4 and a version on the PS5, and a version on the Xbox One and a version on the Project Scarlet. You've got that kind of situation going on here, so it's going to be a game that continues to grow and evolve. And of course, we saw tons of updates come to Dying Light. Free updates came to Dying Light, including even a Battle Royale mode at one point. They continued to support that game time and time again, shocking a lot of people, I think, because I don't know how many people expected that kind of support to be coming for the guys over there at Techland. But hopefully Dying Light 2 gets a release date sometime in spring of 2020. I feel like that's a pretty good time to release the game. Of course, you have the build-up to the holiday season with the new consoles, but at the same time, you do have that build-up, and you could say, hey, we are going to be launching in April of 2020 on the PS4 and the Xbox One, and then on day one with the PlayStation 5 and Project Scarlet, you can play Dying Light 2. Or maybe a couple of months after that, whatever it might be, just giving us a time frame would definitely benefit the situation. However, moving on, let's talk about these Chinese tariffs, shall we? Trump's proposed game console tariff has been delayed. The United States trade war with China conveniently won't affect holiday shoppers. The president's proposed 25% tariff against video game and tabletop industries will be implemented a little later than planned. If you were worried about shelling out extra for a Switch this winter, relax. Trump's administration has delayed planned tariffs on phones, laptops, game consoles, and select clothing until December the 15th, 3 months later than the proposed September 1st deadline, via the Washington Post. Quote, what we've done is we've delayed it so they won't be relevant in the Christmas shopping season, Trump told reporters, just in case they might have had an impact on people. Importantly, the new date places the tariff deadline after Black Friday. It's sure to come as some relief to Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft ahead of the busy holiday season, but it's unlikely to sway them over completely. The Big Three rely heavily on Chinese manufacturing, and the trio has condemned Trump's proposed wall on imports. While we appreciate the administration's efforts to protect U.S. intellectual property and preserve U.S. high-tech leadership, the disproportionate harm caused by these tariffs to U.S. consumers and businesses will undermine, not advance these goals, a joint statement read. Of course, very notable because all three companies came together to release a joint statement. That is unification, my friends. It also buys the manufacturers more time to decide how to deal with the import hike. Sony has already declared that consumers will eat the cost if the PlayStation becomes more expensive to import. And so we have the delay solely because of the holiday season. I see no other reason aside from the potential income that comes from the holiday shopping season being the main culprit here. Of course, not to get too political on the show, because again, we try and maintain a pretty strict guideline when it comes to the political side of things. I try and stay out of it completely because you aren't here for politics. This is not Pod Save America. This, my friends, is the Jampack Report, where we talk about video games and ignore the problems of the world. But whenever you have a declining U.S. economy and negative reports coming in from the global economy in a lot of various sects, a lot of various ways, you have to ensure that you still look good for the PR. That's kind of what the president focuses on 9 times out of 10. And so to be able to say, look at that, our holiday sales are through the roof, and to not have any kind of Chinese tariff impact, it's going to be a good look. It's going to be a good look. So, of course, if you were curious as to whether or not the Chinese tariffs were going to impact what you got on Black Friday, maybe the Switch Lite sales, maybe the price of a PS4 Pro, you don't have to worry about that until at least December the 15th of 2019, if even that date is set in stone, which I doubt that it is. But you know what is set in stone? The brand new headquarters for Epic Games' new studio. This is breaking news as of the time of recording this podcast, because Epic Games announces the opening of a new studio in Cologne, Germany, coming to us from the UnrealEngine.com website blog. Epic Games today announced the opening of its newest studio located in Cologne, Germany. Led by the founders of Factor 5, creators of the Turrican and Star Wars Rogue Squadron franchises, Epic Games Cologne is joined by F5's principal members and serves as part of the company's expanding focus on emerging forms of interactive media and streaming technologies. Prior to joining Epic, the Factor 5 team, including Epic Games Director of Online Technology Julian Egbrecht and Cologne Studio Director Akeem Moeller, has been on the forefront of media delivery, working with Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu, as well as serving as technology partners for both Nintendo and Sony. At the core of Epic's success are highly skilled and passionate individuals, said Julian Egbrecht, Director of Online Technology. Germany is a nation at the forefront of technology, and we look forward to extending our local presence as we fill newly created roles and hire exceptional talent. Epic Games currently has nearly 200 open roles across dozens of global locations and is currently accepting applications for positions at the Cologne studio. So hey, if you are a skilled individual and you want to break into the gaming industry, join Epic Games, because man, those people are going places. But let's talk about this new studio. What could they be working on? A variety of things, who really knows, but they have a ton of talent behind the scenes. Of course, you have the founders of Factor 5, of course, Rogue Squadron, one of my favorite Star Wars games, fantastic experience. But then you have people that have worked with Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. They are getting into the streaming space in a big, big way. Because as I said about the YouTube situation with Nintendo, streaming and content creation, that's how you advertise. That's how you monetize your content. Not really the best way to put that, but you know what I'm saying. That's how you get your name out there, regardless of whether you're talking about Fortnite or whether you're talking about a brand new game that has not even been revealed. That's how it works in today's day and age. And so to see a new studio opening in Germany that has a ton of talent on both the design side of things and also on the content delivery side of things simply makes sense, and I think it's going to be a big move for Epic that is definitely setting them up for the next generation. But hey, if you want a job, ooh, they're hiring, baby. They are hiring. However, Epic has had to apologize following the release of a reskinned cosmetic item. Players have been refunded after complaints that a new battle pet is nearly indistinguishable from previously released one. Yes, we're talking about a dog in a game. Epic Games will be issuing refunds to players following complaint. The developer released a reskinned Fortnite cosmetic. Released in the latest patch update, the Gunner battle pet looks almost identical to the Bonesy from Season 6 of Fortnite, which arrived in September of last year. Quote, "We should not have released the Gunner pet and apologize for doing so," said an Epic Games spokesperson on the Fortnite subreddit. The item has been removed from sale and players will receive the full 1,000 V-Buck refund along with a 200 V-Buck sweetener. You made money. Ooh. Earlier this year, Epic Games found itself embroiled in the latest crunch controversy that is completely unrelated to this story, but it's a good segue for you to check out what GamesIndustry.biz is posting. But I did want to show off Bonesy, Fortnite. Let's see. I don't know why they didn't put a picture in the article. Here's a thing from Forbes. Let's put that. Okay, so if we're looking at the Forbes picture here, basically Bonesy's on the left and then Gunner is on the right. There's a bit of a different shade of a coat, looking conspicuously like it's just the top portion of the dog that's been changed. And then, of course, the bandana now has a slightly lighter shade of camo and then a logo on the front that looks to be a Gunner icon. Don't do this. People are expecting something new, fresh, whenever you buy a new item in the shop. This is a horrible Photoshop. This is like whenever you have a 12-year-old that's making YouTube videos and they try to make a thumbnail and they change the colors to make them pop a little bit more. It's like, let's make the eyes blue and then we're going to make the coat yellow and then you forget the bottom half. Yeah, let's never do that again. That was a really, really bad move. But overall, we will see what happens with the Fortnite skins, etc., etc. But hey, if you were curious as to if they were going to continue selling the dogs in the shop, they are. But they are going to be having the actual dogs, I suppose, remade. I don't know what they're going to do with this. But if you did buy the Gunner dog, don't worry about it. You got a big refund on top of a couple of extra bucks in your bank. However, moving on, let's talk about this G2A situation because the Subnautica dev admits G2A was not the source of $30,000 in stolen keys. It looks like the Subnautica developer won't be getting that $300,000 apology after all. Unknown Worlds took gray market storefront G2A to task earlier this week over $30,000 in stolen Natural Selection 2 keys. Suffice to say, G2A didn't take that threat of paying a hefty $300,000 sum to the dev lying down. The store issued a pointed rebuttal accusing Unknown Worlds founder Charlie Cleveland of slander, and G2A points out that it didn't exist back in 2013 when the chargebacks were made. G2A claims the site as we know it didn't kick off until a year later. There is a reason to believe G2A may have fudged archive dates mined. The firm itself states it was founded in 2010 and its own support page claims G2A kicked off the online marketplace in 2013. But Unknown Worlds has had enough. Cleveland has retracted the $300,000 claim against G2A, admitting the site likely had little to do with the chargebacks. It does appear that G2A is right, Cleveland admitted to Kotaku. They weren't the source of these original $30,000 in keys, and it doesn't look like they were selling gray market keys at the time we had all those chargebacks, but they've been doing it ever since. Don't expect Cleveland to change his tune on G2A altogether. The developer continued to damn G2A's business model regardless of when it started. Despite reportedly asking asking G2A to delist his games, it sounds like the marketplace hasn't been accommodating. They have never done it, he continued. They just changed the conversations to us selling our keys formally through them. And so the conversation around G2A continues. Of course, it's something we've been talking about for a hot minute here on the podcast because it's been all the talk in 2019. A lot of developers coming after G2A saying that they are a really shady marketplace, and admittedly, they kind of are. That's just the nature of the beast when it comes to G2A. They are not going to always be on the up and up. I will say they have improved over the past few months, in the past few years. They are not as shady as they used to be, but still there is some shade without a doubt. Now, on top of this, I will say this situation with the Subnautica dev and the accusations, this is a bit of a situation that we're not quite used to because it seems like there are accusations being made towards G2A, and they are being used more as a scapegoat than anything because you do have a lot of issues on the back end when it comes to chargebacks, when it comes to developers hemorrhaging money in certain situations because of some kind of back-end situation. But at the same time, it has to be acknowledged that sometimes it's not G2A. Sometimes there are just situations that are out of your control and you're looking for someone to blame, and that might be exactly what you were getting here. But overall, very unfortunate to see that this is happening at all. Of course, I never want to see a game developer lose money in any situation, regardless of what happens. But at the same time, it does have to be taken into account that G2A might not always be at fault. I have to be the first one to point that out. It seems like no one else is going to take that, stance, but they're not great, but they're not always going to be the devil. Not always. However, you won't be buying Spelunky 2 on the site unless it's, a fake key, because the game isn't coming out in 2019. That was a good segue, don't you think? Spelunky 2 is not releasing this year after all. It has had a minor delay, but minor is in this Eurogamer article like the occupation. If you had plans for digital adventures in dimly lit caves this year, you will have to wait a while longer, as the sequel to critically acclaimed indie roguelike Spelunky will no longer be releasing in 2019. And of course, this is announced via Twitter, as all things are in 2019. Designer Derek Yu took to Twitter to announce the delay, explaining that while development is going well and the team is not far off target, the density and detail of the game means it needs a little more time in the oven. Yu also apologized for the lack of updates, but said he had been listening to feedback about the environments seen in the trailer and had been working on adding more detail and increasing contrast. And of course, you have snippets of the art from the game. It looks very, very good. As of yet, there is no new release date for Spelunky 2 beyond the fact that it's not coming in 2019. When it does release, however, you can expect to see it on PC and PS4, and you can also expect a very excited Christian Donlin at Eurogamer. But Spelunky 2 is, of course, as the article says, not releasing this year after all. Unfortunate, but at the same time, I wanted to point this out because Spelunky is a game that is, in a way, legendary. It was one of the early indie games that really took off and took the world by storm, and it has a special spot in a lot of people's hearts, and I think that status kind of solidifies the idea that it doesn't matter when it necessarily comes out, it's going to be a pretty big success regardless. If it comes out on the next generation even, which I would say that it probably will, you are going to be seeing a ton of people jump on board because the game itself looks gorgeous. Spelunky, the original, very fun. So if you take that foundation, you put a new coat of paint on it, you buff up the gameplay a little bit, boom, you've got a fantastic experience that has an evergreen kind of stance for years on end. But unfortunately, if it is years on end of an experience, it's not going to be 2019 and then years on end. It'll probably be sometime in 2020, if I had to guess. However, you could play it on Steam, you could play it on PS4, but Steam is adding a play it on another platform as a new way to ignore games in the store, so if you do play Spelunky 2 on PS4, you can block it out of the store entirely. That is assuming it releases on Steam. That'll be a topic for another day, now won't it? But new data will help the interactive recommender understand what you are interested in, even if you don't buy it. My Steam library, the author says, currently sits at an embarrassing total of 322 games owned. I buy and redeem codes for a lot of games on Steam, but I do sometimes buy them on other stores or other platforms entirely. Undertale, for instance, I decided was a perfect game to play on my Nintendo Switch, so when Steam's Discovery Queue recommends it to me, I debate what to do. I treat Steam's machine learning systems like a new puppy, constantly at risk of picking up bad habits if I tell it the wrong thing. So I just skip it every time I see it, afraid that if I hit ignore, Steam will think I don't like Undertale and will show me fewer things that I like. I do like Undertale, I just don't want to buy it again to prove a point to Steam. I also don't want to clog up my wish list with things I actually own. Fortunately, Steam has now added a separate checkbox and a drop-down under the ignore button called Played on Another Platform. Valve's Alden Kroll says on Twitter that the plan is to feed the new Played on Other Platforms data into the new recommendation engines, most specifically the new interactive recommender tool. This new feature is a way to signal to Steam that a game is of interest to you even though you don't want to buy it or wishlist it. And so if you've used the ignore function for Steam games in the past and would like to change how you would tag them, you can see a list of your ignored products via the link that is in the article, though Kroll says you shouldn't feel compelled to do so. And so that's pretty much where it stands today. New algorithms, new situations, new setups for adding your games to your Steam library, or at least letting Steam know what you are vaguely interested in. But I think this is a pretty good move because of the fact that many people are playing on a variety of platforms. To assume as a platform that you are the only place people play games in 2019 is completely naive. You can't assume this. Many people have consoles, many people have Nintendo Switches, tons of people play on mobile, and a lot of the games that come out on PC are simultaneously releasing, or at least maybe even at a later date releasing, on a variety of platforms. You even have games that are built for PC releasing on stuff like iPhones. To assume that you are going to be the only place somebody goes to play stuff, that's just kind of kidding yourself. And so to be able to have this function where you can say, hey, I'm playing this on PS4, I'm playing this on Switch, I've got this on my mobile phone, that definitely is going to improve the overall recommendation system. And I think that whenever you don't see repeats, you are more likely to actually check out a game on the platform, or at least use Steam as a discovery tool to find games that you might actually be interested that might have slipped through the cracks before. Instead of being recommended the exact same thing you're playing time and time again, you can see exactly what you haven't played if you do actually go through the hassle of, using this system. But if you did want to use the system, I would assume it's out now on the Steam Marketplace. If you did want to go in, check it out, change up your wish list, and change up what games you have ignored, etc., etc. But overall, good tool for the future of the platform. But finally, to round out today's show, if you are a player on PlayStation 4, there are some brand new DualShock 4 controller colors coming your way on top of a brand new gold wireless headset. Sony Interactive Entertainment is looking to capitalize on strong gamepad sales with some new colors for its DualShock 4 gamepad. The company announced 4 new gamepad colors as well as a fresh design for its wireless gaming headset. The DualShock 4 controllers begin shipping in September for $65, and you can get the headset at some point later in the fall for $100. The updated DualShock 4 colors include electric purple, red camouflage, titanium blue, and rose gold. But if you are basic, like me, the author says, that translates to purple, red, and some black blotches, silvery blue, and shiny pink. I like shiny pink. The rose gold wireless gaming headset, meanwhile, is like PlayStation's previous black gaming headset, but now you can get it to match your new gamepad. You can also get it to match your iPhone as well, which also conveniently comes in rose gold. Getting that DualShock 4 accessory money, Sony is slightly behind the trend here, but these devices should still perform well in a historically hot game accessory market. Games like Fortnite and Apex Legends pushed gamepad and headset sales to new highs in 2018, and that momentum has only cooled slightly in 2019. PlayStation was already benefiting from those increased sales. The PS4 Black wireless controller is the best-selling gamepad through the first half, of 2019, according to the NPD Group, and it was also the #1 gamepad in June when accessory sales racked up $338 million. Headsets also continue to fly off shelves, with Turtle Beach being the top of that space, but even if Sony only owns a small market share, it should still profit. Headsets are extremely high-margin products, which is why every keyboard, mouse, and RAM company makes their own. Now, hopefully, Sony confirms that the PlayStation 4's DualShock 4 will work with all games on the PlayStation 5, which is likely launching next holiday. If that's the case, the author says he might pick one up. I don't believe that's going to be the case. I think there's going to be a brand new proprietary controller for the next-gen console. Because why would they let you use what you just bought? Does that sound like a good idea? Probably in the consumer stance, but no, not from a marketing standpoint. No, no. Did you even go to marketing school? Probably not. But overall, cool controllers, I suppose. I just wanted to let you guys know these were available if you were in the market. Sorry about the PlayStation thing there. For a brand new controller, of course, they always look very pretty when it comes to the new controllers. I'm a big fan of the classic black. That's the one that I had for a very long time. Then I got the navy blue. And at the end of the day, I don't really care what color the controller is as long as it functions well. But I will say headsets are a completely necessary part of the gaming setup in 2019, especially with the competitive side of stuff like Apex Legends and Fortnite, where sound is such a big part of the game. If you are using built-in TV speakers to experience a competitive shooter, you are going to lose 9 times out of 10. You have to be able to hear people's footsteps, where the grenades are exploding, whatever you might hear in the distance could be the make it or break it for a dub in your account. But overall, if you did want a brand new controller or headset to get those dubs with on the PS4, congratulations, you now have 4 different options coming later in September, with a new headset coming later in the year that looks very pretty if you are into rose gold. I'm not necessarily, but that doesn't mean that you have to not be. That was a weird way to say that. But with that being said, that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. I appreciate you guys checking out the show, and for those live in the Mixer chat, I appreciate you taking the time to hang out and catch up on the hottest gaming news of the day. Tskill933 says, "Ease up on the voice mods, my dude. I can't change how I sound. I apologize. That's just a birth talent that came out. That's how I talk." But with that being said, I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day. If you are listening to the podcast version of the show, consider clicking that subscribe button on your feed. And on top of that, if you are watching on youtube.com/SamuelAdamsMedia, thank you for taking the time. Click that like button if you enjoyed what I brought to the table, and consider subscribing to get this show 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Again, hosted live on mixer.com/SamuelAdams around 9 a.m. Eastern Time. But until tomorrow, you guys have a fantastic rest of the day. I will talk to you soon, and peace.